Agents of custody. What looks like a trial is only a simulation. 7 traps decide reality. Walk into family court looking for justice, and you're dead on arrival. The courtroom isn't where morality gets weighed or where sacrifice earns credit. It isn't a tribunal of truth either. It's the program running its code. Old frame, redefine normal, and the system calls it stability. Bleed slower and maybe you'll last. The rest just get erased. Men who walk in blind imagine the judge will see through the act, balance the scales, and reward the one who stayed faithful, paid the bills, or showed up for the kids. That fantasy is the first trap in the simulation. By the time they realize what game they're in, their access is gone, wallet drained, and their credibility shredded by allegations that don't even need to be true. Fate, it seems, is not without a sense of irony. Step into family court and you'll swear you've walked into the Smithsonian of Agent Smiths, each one identical, each one reciting the program, all of them guarding the same code. Men think they're in a trial. They're in a simulation. Every trap just lines of code running until they learn how to break it. Here's the map. 7 landmines wired into the custody program. Traps most men step on because they believe court was about fairness. But what it actually is about is leverage and attrition. The simulation doesn't care about truth, it cares about continuity. It's about who defines normal and who can endure. Each trap has a counter. Miss it, and the system defaults to her version of reality. Status quo trap when the simulation resets without you. The most dangerous word in family court isn't justice, it's stability. Judges are obsessed with it and repeat it like a mantra. Continuity, stability, routine. The system preaches stability, but what it delivers is exclusion. If she cuts you out for 6 weeks because you're hearing and before you're hearing and you don't force your way back immediately, well, guess what? The simulation just reset without you. When you finally step into court, the judge won't say, "This father was denied his rightful access." They'll say, "The child appears settled in this arrangement. Let's not disrupt it further." And just like that, her dirty play hardwires itself into the program. But it gets worse. The program doesn't just run through her. Sometimes your own lawyer helps it along. Denial is the most predictable of all human responses. Most men sabotage themselves by being too damn patient. They think that letting her withhold time will make them look mature. By waiting it out proves they're reasonable. The court doesn't reward patience, and it punishes absence. You think you're being noble, but what the judge sees is a father who hasn't been around. The status quo hardens into code and the program's reality. Fathers who let 6 weeks slide often discover the damage is permanent. They expect the judge to respect their restraint, but what the court sees is continuity with the mother. The child has been exclusively with mother. Continuity is important. With that, the lost weeks harden into the new normal, and the simulation rewrites reality without them. Response to this: never let the gap form. If she withholds, you show up anyway. You keep receipts of every blocked attempt, texts, emails, unanswered knocks. You attend every school concert, doctor's appointment, every extracurricular. And if she keeps stonewalling, you file for interim relief immediately. You don't wait around and hope, you fight to stop her new normal before it calcifies into the system. The principle: your frame defines your reality. In relationships, it's how you control the narrative. In court, frame isn't words, it's paperwork. Whoever controls what the judge sees as normal isn't just arguing, they're playing the role of the agent, ruthlessly enforcing the code. Number 2, shadows in the dark, the ex parte ambush. You hear that, Mr. Anderson? That is the sound of inevitability. The second landmine is the ambush you never see coming. Ex parte motions, her ability to file emergency applications without you even in the room. She claims urgency, and suddenly you're under a court order you didn't know existed. Emergency custody changes, restraining orders, suspension of access, delivered not by a judge in a row, but a cop at your door. One emergency claim spawns a whole chain of restrictions. The program doesn't wait for proof, it just executes. And here's the killer. By the time you're notified, it's already live. You're not walking into court from neutral, you're crawling out of being down in a hole. Judges love to say they err on the side of caution. And what this actually means is that they take her at her word until you can disprove it. Until then, you're guilty until proven innocent. The program assumes her frame is reality, and you're fighting uphill to overwrite it. The same guy from before scoffed when his ex threatened an emergency application, said she wouldn't dare. Well, she dared. And the next day, he was barred from picking up his son from school due to his emotional instability. No evidence or proof, of course. And it took him 6 weeks of hearings just to reset back to neutral. 6 weeks that etched permanent scar tissue into his case file. The response? Assume it can happen tomorrow. Build an evidence pack the same way you'd prep a bug-out doomsday bag. Emails, text call logs, report cards, attendance sheets, sworn affidavits from character witnesses. When the ex parte ambush comes, you file your counter within 24 hours. No delay, no scrambling. You replace shadows with data and let the system process reality, not story. Principle. Amused mastery might work in a bar, but family court isn't a bar. It's the system executing code. Frame here isn't charm, it's binders. He who expects ambush survives, he who laughs it off is already deleted. Number 3, death by paper cuts, the final squeeze. The third landmine isn't one big blast, it's the slow drain. Court doesn't have to crush you in a single ruling, it just has to keep running until you're empty. Every case conference, disclosure demand, pointless motion, they're not filed to win, they're filed to bleed you. Every filing and every delay is the program siphoning your wallet and uploading leverage to her side. Men can sink thousands of dollars into fighting a single accusation. Many think that clearing their name is worth it at any price. But then the accusations collapse and they're now broke and their lawyer bails the moment the retainer hits zero. By trial, you're standing alone while she still had counsel. This guy doesn't lose because he was wrong, he lost because the system ran longer than his wallet. The response? Budget for a long haul, at least 18 months. Don't waste resources trying to rebut every exaggeration. Judges don't remember half the lines you fixate on. Don't drop 10K dissecting adjectives in an affidavit. Focus where outcomes are decided. Custody, support, and the division of assets. Let the noise sit. Conserve strength for the parts that matter. Principle. The RP sidebar always warned. Don't chase every shit test. Family court is the ultimate shit test, and every affidavit is bait. If you burn yourself trying to counter every line, the program doesn't have to beat you, it just has to keep running until you can't. Number 4, weaponized allegations. When the agents rewrite your file. 4th landmine, allegations. In family court, the truth isn't required, and allegations are currency. Abuse, neglect, drugs, violence, doesn't matter how thin or absurd, judges will always act conservatively on this one. Translation for you, her words become the operating code until you prove otherwise. Even if you clear your name months later, the damage is done. In court time, lost weeks become lost custody, and custody becomes money, and money becomes leverage. And this is where countless fathers blow themselves up. She lobs an allegation, violence, abuse, instability. Instead of treating it as paperwork, she responds with 1 line versus 10 pages from him. The more he writes, the more unstable he looks. 3 pages on his integrity, his sacrifices, his outrage. To him, it feels like a defense. But to the court, it's a liability. Judges don't want to read your autobiography. They read your tone. And tone is frame in court. On paper, he now looks unstable, reactive, emotional. He thinks he's proving his honor. But what he's really doing is handing her fresh ammunition, hand-delivered. Response. Fight allegations with paper, not passion. Deny briefly, clinically, and boring enough to make a judge yawn. Then let your evidence do the heavy lifting. Photos, logs, attendance records, receipts, witnesses. Build a reality so documented that her story looks like fiction by comparison. Don't give the system heat, give it files. Use frame anchors. Court rewrites what frame means entirely. Here's an anchor in here. An anchor is an external, verifiable point you control. For example, our parenting schedule as filed on such and such date. That is an anchor. So is our son Anders' attendance record from school. Anchors tether the judge's reality to fixed points outside of her narrative. You don't debate her story, you tie it to something she can't bend. The principle here is that the RP warned to never negotiate desire. Well, the same goes for it here. You don't negotiate with lies. You don't rant or argue. You don't sermonize about your honor. You deny, you document, and then you move on. The man who argues his worth gets written out, but the man who treats it as paperwork forces the program to overwrite her code instead. Stack anchors, don't posture. Build enough of them and her allegations collapse under the weight of your fixed points. Number 5, the delay loop, when time becomes the code. The 5th landmine is time itself. Court moves at the speed of mud, and she knows it. Every adjournment, lawyer switch, scheduling issue, it's not just random, it's part of the loop. And the longer the process drags, the more her version of reality gets written into the program. Many see this latency as an efficiency, but in court, she'll weaponize it as continuity. Fathers fall into this trap all the time. They think letting adjournment slide makes them look cooperative, but in reality, every delay hardens the mother's frame. By the time trial arrives, the judge doesn't see months of procedural stalling. He sees a child who has been resided primarily with the mother for nearly a year. That year isn't real, it's manufactured entirely out of delays. But she doesn't need evidence, she just lets the calendar reset the file. The response is always oppose delays on the record. Even if the judge grants them, you're building a trail. You're the only one pressuring for resolution while she hides behind stalling. Judges notice patterns, and the pattern of a father who keeps showing up, objecting, and moving forward matters. It separates you from the men who drift into silence. The principle here is that time is frame. Left uncontested, her stall becomes the new normal. In the simulation, the loop keeps running until someone breaks it. If you don't fight every delay, her version of reality calcifies as the code. Number 6, the friendly trap. When the agent wears a smile. The 6th landmine is disguised as an olive branch. She texts, "Hey, let's just work this out ourselves. No need for lawyers." Don't take the bait. If you vent, joke, or show even subtle sarcasm, those words get recited later as fact. She doesn't want peace, she wants evidence. Judges aren't trying to read humor, but they are especially keen at reading hostility. Emojis get reframed as volatility, jokes can become harassment, and so on. Every friendly olive branch is just a tripwire written in text form. Step wrong and it detonates in her affidavit. Another one I see dads fall for is they think a little playful joke will cut the tension. A remark about her always needing control, a snide reply to her bait attempt. Weeks later, that throwaway line shows up in filings as belittling behavior. What you need is the silence ledger. Every ignored message, every refused drop-off, every delayed reply, logged. Silence isn't absence in this instance, it's evidence. Response. Convert her silence into proof of non-cooperation. Don't let gaps go dark. Document them until they weigh more than her words. Treat every message like a judge is looking over your shoulder. Be civil, short, boring. No jokes, no venting, no clever digs. Keep your rage in your journal, not your text thread. Because remember, in court, boring is strength. The principle here is covert contracts kill you. Thinking if I play nice, she'll play fair is a covert contract. She's not reaching for peace, she's setting traps. So don't play. Number 7, alienation by proxy. When the simulation trains the next agent. The final landmine cuts the deepest. By age 10 or 12, courts start considering the child's wishes, and on the surface, that sounds pretty fair, but in practice, though, it isn't. If she's been running an alienation campaign on you for years, the child parrots her narrative, and the judge swallows it whole. "I don't feel safe with Dad" renders as a fact even if manufactured word for word. Once those lines leave your child's mouth, you're no longer just fighting her, you're fighting a version of yourself that's already been rewritten. Fathers discovered this too late. Years of quiet alienation do their work, and by the time a child tells the court, "I don't want to see him," the damage is sealed. Without records, photos, or proof of involvement, there's nothing to counter this rewritten script. Judges don't see years of manipulation, they see only a child's voice. Response. Build your record early. Document everything. School functions, birthdays, bedtimes, doctor's visits, photos, attendance logs, witnesses. Courts trust documented patterns more than coach testimony. Alienation runs on silence, so without data, the program defaults to her narrative and will not hesitate to Alt F4 you from the file. The principle here is that frame isn't just for women, it's for your kids. If you don't define their reality through presents and receipts, her narrative will fill the void. Once it's burned into their heads, it isn't a conversation anymore, it's code. A code that's almost impossible to recover. The bottom line, court isn't a trial, it's the simulation. Men lose custody not because they're weak fathers, but because they walk in thinking it's a trial. Well, trials weigh facts, but here the code runs the same way every time. Delay, allegation, bleed out, reset, rinse, and repeat. Fail to see it, and you're finished before a word leaves your mouth. Court doesn't run on fairness, it runs on records. Fathers who last don't tell the best story, they keep the cleanest file. And in the end, the code is binary. Stay written into the record or get erased. It's not about justice, it's about not being deleted.